Hello, everyone. I'm Jack Fisher, and welcome to my world. Unfortunately, not everyone in that world is friendly, upstanding, or decent. There are even some people who most would consider outright assholes. They're selfish, greedy, arrogant, narcissistic, and even downright cruel at times, taking pleasure in the suffering and misfortune of others. They'll often make excuses. Some may even think they're the hero of their own story, and that everyone around him is a villain who deserves no compassion, sympathy, or kindness whatsoever. Some may go their whole lives not realizing what an asshole they truly are. And like it or not, these people exist. You've probably dealt with some of these people at some point in your life. I know I have. Going all the way back to grade school, I vividly recall the names of the people I just hated being around. And they often hated me too. While I like to think I didn't make that many enemies growing up, there are still a few who stood out. I'll even admit I wish them genuine harm at some point, especially the ones who legitimately wronged me. But thankfully, time, perspective, and just a general sense of understanding has tempered that resentment. For most of the enemies I've made, I'm more than willing to forgive and forget, even if they aren't. There are still a few for which I would hold a grudge, but if I ever met them, sat down with them, and had a genuine conversation, I would probably be happy to just leave the past in the past. But in certain cases, only those involving people who got away with some pretty egregious actions, I think real punishment is warranted. If for no other reason than to send a clear message that they were the asshole, and they should face consequences for that assholery. But this creates a genuine challenge for me, for society, and for everyone else who has had a hated enemy. And it's one I'd like to frame as both a question and a thought experiment. How would you punish your worst enemy? It's not just a question about morality, justice, logistics, or the legal system. It's also a test of character for individuals as well as the worlds in which they live. What are you willing to do to punish someone you despise with every fiber of your being? How much are you willing to do to ensure someone suffers real consequences for their actions? Now let's say, for the sake of argument, you're in a situation where the hate you feel for someone is perfectly warranted. You encounter your worst enemy, and they did a lot more than just insult, demean, or humiliate you. They did things that left you genuinely scarred, physically and emotionally. And for whatever reason, the justice system isn't going to hold them accountable. It's now on you to decide how this person should be punished. Now, say you could choose any means of punishment, be they cruel, unusual, extreme, or absurd. You can't use magic or do something that isn't physically possible in the real world, like send them back in time to relive their worst moments. You can only use whatever exists in the here and now. With those limitations in mind, what does your ideal form of punishment entail? How do you go about implementing it? How long does it last? And how much pain, loss, or discomfort is involved? It doesn't just have to involve suffering for the sake of suffering. Remember, this is a punishment, a recourse for someone who legitimately did you wrong but faced no other consequences. How you choose to answer these questions can be revealing, and maybe even a little disturbing. I believe we all have a vengeful side. It rarely comes out fully, and it often takes a lot to push an ordinary person to the point of cruelty. That being said, someone's idea of an appropriate punishment can vary wildly. I even learned this a while back when I posed this same question on the Ask Reddit subreddit. Some of the responses ranged from mild, like simply giving them an itch they couldn't scratch, to elaborately cruel, bordering on full-blown torture. Now personally, I don't think I could ever be comfortable torturing someone, even the worst enemy I ever had. In terms of administering an appropriate punishment, I honestly don't think it accomplishes much, aside from satisfying our most sadistic instincts. But if I had to pick a punishment for my worst enemy, it would go something like this. For an entire year, they must wake up at 5 a.m. and do a mind-numbingly menial task for 18 hours straight. It can involve something like putting bottle caps on bottles, It can involve putting random machine parts together, all in a windowless room with no breaks, entertainment, or outside stimulation of any kind. They have to do this every single day while only ever eating the blandest of food for sustenance and being allowed only one single bathroom break. Then, after the year is up, they're brought into a room, and everything they made from their mundane tasks is put out before them. And, as they watch on, everything they made is systematically destroyed, rendering all that hard, monotonous work they did utterly pointless. Now, do you think that's too cruel? Do you think it's not cruel enough? Would you want that inflicted on you? Or would you be comfortable seeing that inflicted on someone you hate? If not, I encourage you to ponder the question yourself. How would you go about this? Please let me know in the comments. I think just contemplating it will tell you something about yourself that you might not have known. It can also give you some real insights into how you understand concepts like justice, punishment, and fairness. Because, like it or not, we all have to deal with assholes in our lives. Some of them will become your enemies, and many of them will do terrible things and face no consequences. It's not fair, but we live in an unfair world. We should certainly work hard at making that world better. But, as uncomfortable as it might make us, punishment must be part of that effort. It's just a matter of how much we're willing to do to one another, as well as how much we're willing to forgive one another. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please stay tuned for more engaging thought experiments, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, take care and stay safe.